Welcome to Cardboard and Plastic. Today's a quick mail day, and I want to cover two other little topics. One topic, and I did post that my last few CSG orders, they've been lenient. And what I mean by that is not the modern cards. The vintage cards from the 60s and the 50s, there really were grading a little bit higher than what I expected. The modern cards were actually pretty tough. Anything from like 80 onwards, right? So, I had 81 tops where I thought they could be a 9, 9.5, even a gem mint, and they were getting 7.5. So, I just want to kind of lead the discussion. I know a lot of other people have used CSG for vintage, and I've been seeing higher grades than what I expect for those cards. And I think what's really going on here is Andy Broome, who's the lead grader for CSG. If people didn't know, he came from Beckett, and he was the lead grader for vintage. And with Beckett, they have BGS and BVG, so they have their own label for vintage. And he graded that way, and they actually take the year, how the card was printed, how it was cut, all into consideration when they grade it. And they do grade the BVG, the vintage, differently at Beckett. And I think that's really what's going on is Andy Broome, he's the lead grader, he taught the people, and I think they really instilled, without telling us, that CSG grades vintage differently than they grade the more modern cards. So anything from 1980 and older, I think they're grading differently than cards from 1981 onwards. So let me know what you think about that in your experience. I even saw a video which kind of upset me that they actually took they took BVG cards in the holders. They submitted them to CSG, and they actually came back with the same grade or even a little higher from a crossover, from a BVG slab to a CSG slab. So I think a couple of people said, no, CSG grades harder. Well, for modern, yes, I would agree. But for the vintage, there's still some questions for me. And another thing that popped up today is somebody was kind of complaining that nobody wants to trade vintage. Everybody they could trade modern, right? But nobody really wants to trade vintage. And I think it really comes down to, well, here's a card that I just got recently, right? A Karl Malone, and this rookie doesn't really mean a lot to me. The centering's a little bit different, but really there's so many of these cards that if I want one, I could just go buy another one. However, with vintage, I kind of become attached to these cards, right? So I do have doubles of this, right? So I have a PSA 3 and a CSG 5.5. This one graded a little higher than I thought. Again, not trying to start a conspiracy theory here, but just something for the discussion. Please leave in the comments below if you have the same feeling as me, that the vintage is graded differently. But this, I can't get rid of. Even though I like this card a little bit more, the colors are a little bit better. So that is a higher graded card. It should be. But this card I can't get rid of. How many 1969s do you see that are a 3 that are centered like this? And I think this is what really is difficult with vintage collectors. Each card is unique. Each card is special. And it's hard to get rid of them. Like these two cards, right? Technically, this is a better card. The centering is worse. But the surface is in great condition. And the corners aren't great. But this card, graded a 1, But I think if it's sitting on a shelf, the centering is a little bit better, even though not great. But if it's just sitting on a shelf, it just has, I think, better eye appeal. Now, the problem with this card is somebody got angry. I don't know what happened. They just started putting like little pinholes through it. So it deserves that grade. There's some surface issues, right? And I think if you tilt it too, you can see like the crease there. So it does have issues, but if you just look at it straight on, it's a beautiful card. It still holds value. And that's why I like to grade these vintage. Even if it's a 1 with a Clemente, or a 3 or a 4 with a Hank Aaron, I think those cards deserve to be graded. So let me know if you have trouble trading your vintage. Modern I could trade all day long. I know I can always find another one. I had PSA 10 Kobe's and Shaqs. I got rid of them. And I just got the 8s and the 9s. And then people give me a good deal. Yeah, I'll go down to a 7. I don't really care. So, mail day today. Got a couple of cards. All right, thank you. Thank you for the thank you. All right, I paid $15 for this card. All right, sorry I'm back. Had a little interruption there. So this is the first card that I bought, $15. It's a Smits SP for my PC. Paid $15 for it. Whenever I see these cards that are out of 100, I have to get these. They're really hard to find. There are a couple of other collectors. I think I got it for a little bit cheaper, and I followed it. And there was actually about 3 other people that were following this card as well. Then I got an offer from the seller, then I bought it. But there are a lot of Smits collectors out there, and anything out of 100, you have to spend money for these. Can't get these for $1 or $2. So that's a great card for my PC. And the second should be 2 cards in here. And again, both cards packaged properly. I wonder how many like YouTube videos have stopped because somebody like hurt themselves by opening a package. They should have like a bloopers reel of somebody just slicing their hand open with a knife or something like that. So got 2 cards, and this is why I brought out my Aaron and Clemente. Shocked. And this was one, I think it was like $60. I followed it, and a bunch of other people were following it too. And I said, I'm gonna make offer for $50. The buyer came back for $55, and I took it. They said edgeware, but the cards looked really nice. This Hank Aaron does have that print defect on the bottom, and the centering is not up to my usual standards with these. But for basically like a little bit over $25 a card for 1968, 2 of the best. These are great cards. So this card looks in great shape. I don't see any creases. And I'll probably, when grading gets cheaper, like $10, might slab it. But everything looks really clean on this card. Little soft corners. But this card is 10 years older than me. This card looked a little bit better centered, but top to bottom, it wasn't great. But that looks like a beautiful card. The colors are absolutely fabulous on these. And the surface looks great. You can tell that these people took care for these cards. So when grading gets cheaper, I'm going to put these to the side. I'll possibly grade these at the $10 to $15 range, nothing more than that. Probably wait till about $12. But it's going to happen soon enough. Oh, and this is the other reason I brought this out too. They use the same exact picture for the 68 and the 69. A lot of people, they don't like that. So it's a very similar card. Well, thank you for watching. Again, have a great day and keep on collecting.